In 1620, while the Mayflower was in Provincetown, 18 of its men sailed in a small shallop, searching for a place to live. They came to present-day Eastham, where they were met by a group of Nauset. After a brief but violent encounter, the English left towards today's Plymouth. In 2020, we remember this first encounter. We explore its meanings for today and tomorrow. Welcome back to the Sunset Series. My name is Joanna Hollick, and I'm the coordinator of this series with Eastham 400. I'm here again today with Alyssa Harris, who is a member of the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe. Welcome.
Thank you.
So can you tell me a little bit about what art was like in traditional Wampanoag culture and society?
It was very common, so people would have tattoos, makeup, and as well as that, they would decorate their homes and their personal belongings. So because people were thriving, they had time for that. It wasn't like you just make a home and you live in it. People would actually decorate and put time into making it look good. And then they would also do that for their clothing. They could paint it, or for bags, they could dye the string and make different colors so it's not so boring.
And are the same techniques still used to make art today?
For makeup, sometimes. For weaving, if you want to dye string, sometimes. A lot of the time, we'll just get commercial string. It's a lot easier. And then there are maybe a few people I've met that have done a traditional tattoo. It's just that people are afraid to do it because it can be quite painful.
And do you make any art yourself?
Yeah, I do pottery, and then I also do a lot of weaving. So I actually have a bag. So it took me a long time.
And can you tell us a little bit about how you made this bag?
It's finger weaving, and the string now it's just commercial string, but it would have been made of milkweed, which it's quite a process just to make the string itself, let alone the bag. So it would take 2 hours to make one string or from one stem of milkweed. And the difference between milkweed and this string is it would be a lot silkier. The English described it as silk. And also, when bags were woven traditionally, they would be woven so tight that they could hold water.
What kind of things were these bags normally used to carry?
It's just like how people have their purses nowadays, just for personal belongings. But then also, you could put them in your homes and they would be like dressers and drawers, and then they could be like pockets because we didn't have any.
And how did you get the color on this bag that you made?
So you can dye with inedible berries, roots, and rocks. We wouldn't use edible things because we didn't want to waste unless, say, it were like rotten blueberries or something. So the most common, the easiest colors to get were reds and purples, but a rare color to get would be blue because we could only really get it from English wool socks and the inner bark of a silver maple tree. So that was the hardest. If you saw somebody with blue, it's kind of like seeing somebody with Gucci slides.
And how long did it take you to make this bag?
So I spread it out over like 6 months. Each day, like if it were combined, it was a month. But then if you're to combine it by the hours, probably like 30 hours or so.
And what process did you use to make it?
It was all finger weaving, so I didn't have any tools. It was all by hand, except for the very end. I sewed leather on the top. But other than that, it was all by hand. And when I would sew, the string to use to sew it would be sinew, and then I could use a bone or a metal needle.
And was it traditional to just do finger weaving to make the baskets and bags?
Yeah, either that or a lot faster way would just be sew leather together. It's a lot faster, but they're not as cool as these ones.
Was there anything appearance-wise that was different with either the people or the land traditionally as compared to today?
People were a lot taller, so I've heard a lot of people saying that nowadays people are getting taller. That's true if you're comparing it to the English, but if you're comparing it to native people, we're shorter because native people would be 6 to 7 feet tall, and also the men, they would look different because they'd have long hair. So having short hair is English culture, but for us having long hair, that's normal for men because hair is considered medicine. But one thing that you would also see often is men would have one side of their head shaved, and usually it's the side that their dominant hand is on. So then when they're doing bow and arrow, their hair doesn't get stuck. If you have long hair, it's a good thing. Like I said, hair is considered medicine. Another thing is that for women, once your hair gets to a certain length, it's kind of part of becoming a woman. But then another thing about appearance is that tattoos and piercings were really common. So it's kind of weird, but sometimes people could have a piercing. Instead of like several small ear piercings, they could have like one big hole from their lobe to their cartilage. And then tattoos were seen a lot. You could use charcoal or crushed bird bones, so all the tattoos would be black.
And what did people normally get tattoos of, or what was the significance of the tattoos?
It's like nowadays, a lot of the times, it's just because it looks cool. And people also had makeup too. And sometimes there is makeup that has significance, but most of the time, it's like nowadays, it's just because they want to look good.
So you've spoken about the appearances of people and how that has differed over time. What about the appearance of the land?
Everything now, it's overgrown and everything is small. So by 1750, 80% of Massachusetts was clear cut. But before then, there used to be huge chestnut and elm trees. They would be 10 feet in diameter, 150 to 200 feet tall. Now there's like these small trees all around Cape Cod. So the trees, basically, they were the size of redwoods. And then also, when the English got here, since most of them were poor, they would weigh down their ships with soil instead of steel or titanium because it was a lot cheaper. So because they introduced that soil, it modified our soil. And on top of that, with the deforestation, it caused erosion. So we lost 18 inches of topsoil. The soil that's seen now is a lot harder, and it's not as nutrient rich as it used to be. And then also, that soil is what brought a lot of the weeds we have now.
So are there any particular plants or crops that used to grow here that are no longer able to after the new soil was introduced?
Yeah, so there was Dutch elm disease, so that it killed the elm trees that were here. And then also, the worst one is Phragmites. It's one of the worst because Phragmites is an invasive species. So it prevents cattails from growing, and cattails are important because that's what makes the roof of the summer home. And it's an important roof because it can make a home up to 85 degrees, but then also it can make a home 10 degrees cooler than outside. But before the soil was brought here, women would only need to weed their gardens once a year. The weeds that we had, they were actually useful. They weren't obnoxious. So for example, one of them is jewelweed, which actually, if you put it on your skin, it can help with poison ivy.
What are some of the other plants or weeds or crops that were traditionally grown?
So in the garden, it would be 1 to 2 acres, and it would have corn, beans, squash, watermelons, pumpkins, and sunflowers. But then outside of the garden, there would also be growing inedible squash, which could be used for gourds, and then tobacco. The only thing with the tobacco is that men were the only ones that could go around it.
And why is that?
Tobacco is looked at as medicine, and women, they already have medicine, which is the ability to give birth. So because men don't have that, instead they can smoke tobacco, but also elder women can smoke tobacco because they can't give birth either. But the coincidence with that is that it's not really a good idea to smoke tobacco if you're having a baby.
Well, thank you for everything that you have shared with us and for being here today on the Sunset series.
You're welcome.
My name is Joanna Hollick. Thank you for your support of the Sunset series and Eastham 400. If you're interested in supporting Eastham 400 efforts by purchasing commemorative items, we do have several items for sale on our website, eastham400.org. We are selling gold foil First Encounter ornaments, t-shirts with the Eastham 400 logo, and montages made by a local artist. Each of these items are $20. Thank you.